Okay, let's get real for a second. If your child turns into a different kid after snack time, it might not be just the sugar. Artificial dyes like red 40, yellow 5 were designed to make cereal and candy look fun. But in sensitive kids, they can hijack behavior. I mean, we're talking tantrums, brain fog, hyperactivity, full on emotional chaos. But here's the part no one tells you. Many countries have already banned these dyes, but in the US, most of them are still on shelves. Big companies are promising change, but will it actually happen? Welcome to the Soaring Child podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm Dana Kay, your host. Hello, parents, and welcome back to the Soaring Child podcast. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Now, every time I see a headline about artificial dyes being removed from our food supply, I feel this glimmer of hope, but then I don't know, this wave of caution comes over me because I've been doing this long enough to know that headlines don't always equal real change. And longtime listeners know how strongly I feel about this. I've seen it time and time again, what food dyes can do to a sensitive body. I've seen tantrums, the crashes, the wild mood swings. I've seen it in my own child where he's gone from totally calm to explosive. And then the opposite when we take these chemicals out of the diets. And while I'm encouraged by the noise being made right now, I do have questions. Will this shift actually happen? Are companies being forced to change, or are they just being asked nicely? And that is why today I am so excited about today's guest. Dr. Anna Maria Temple is a board-certified pediatrician, functional medicine practitioner, and author of Healthy Kids in an Unhealthy World. With over 20 years of clinical experience and a mum of 3 kids of her own, she brings this rare mix of practical insight and real world compassion. She's helped thousands of families heal from chronic issues, especially eczema, but she really looks deep beyond symptoms and gets to the root of what's really causing and what's going on in the body. She's been in the room for some of the recent conversations in Washington around artificial dye regulation. So today we're going to cut through all the noise and really get the truth straight from someone who's seen both sides, the clinic and the policy. Now it's time to welcome Dr. Anna Maria Temple to the Soaring Child. Hi, Dr. Anna. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Donna, so great to be here. I'm so excited to talk about this topic because I get a lot of questions about it as well.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Now, there's so much buzz around it. And when I first saw the headline, I was excited, but at the same time, a bit skeptical. I know you were in Washington for the announcement. Tell us what you heard, what you know.
It was probably the first time that I've actually heard a government official talk about chronic disease, about that what's in our food matters, that we need to make changes more than just medications and this other policy, et cetera. It's the first time that I've seen the head of the FDA, heard him, Dr. Makary, talk about the fact that he is done with food coloring in our food. And because of that, I was very hopeful. We have two prominent people talking about changing food, starting with artificial dyes. Now, this was not made into a policy. This is not written into law, which has a lot of people very skeptical. And I'm with them, with everybody, because if we look at in 2018, Kellogg's promised to take artificial food dyes out of their food. And here we are in 2025, and they've done nothing of the sort. So, I give everyone a total pass on being skeptical because we've seen it before and it didn't happen. But I am hoping that with having two prominent politicians and the head of the FDA and the head of Health and Human Services talking about this, that things are going to change. Now, we've had several companies not being bullied. Again, I don't know what's happening behind closed doors, but we have had prominent companies, Pepsi, even Kellogg's has come forth and said that they are removing artificial food dyes from many of their products by either the end of 2025, 2026, latest 2027. So that's really encouraging. Again, no one has signed anything into law, but they have voluntarily come forth to say that they are willing to meet this demand.
Well, it's good to hear from that, and it must have been just amazing to be in the room for that announcement. I mean, you have been advocating for so long to just make kids' food healthier, and then to be invited to Washington for that announcement. I mean,
That was so
amazing.
cool. So cool. Yeah.
It must have been so cool. And I just want to say to listeners, this isn't about politics at all. Like, I don't talk politics on this podcast. This is not all about it. This is about what goes into our kids' body. Now, let's just talk science for a sec, because longtime listeners of the podcast would know I talk a lot about dyes. But for new listeners, what do we actually know about the link between food dyes and ADHD behaviors in kids? Like, is this something that affects all kids or just some? And, how can a parent, tell if their child is sensitive to this stuff?
Yeah, well, actually, several studies were done to figure out, is artificial food dye a thing? Because interestingly, if you turn the food package around, you don't see how many milligrams of artificial food dye is in the package.
Mm.
You see milligrams of sodium, you see grams of sugar, but there's no milligrams of food dye. And we act like it's not there. It's not a big deal because it's not on the package, and it's not on the package on purpose in order to take it out of the consumer's mind. But the Purdue University actually did a study and looked at how many milligrams of red 40 are in different foods. And what they found, that many different foods contain between 21 milligrams to 50 milligrams to 62 milligrams. The highest milligram containing foods are going to be the soft drinks like Gatorade and Powerade. But a serving of cereal is 21 grams. And no one has just one serving of Kellogg's Fruit Loops. They usually have two servings. But when you pour one serving in the bowl, you'll see it barely covers the bottom of the bowl. So it's two. So really 41 milligrams of artificial food dye for breakfast before we go to school. Another study looked at, well, how many milligrams does it take to set off a sensitive child but eating red food dye to have neurobehavioral issues like ADHD impulsivity. And they found that about between 26 and 34 milligrams will set the kid off. And what they also found is that the average American child consumes between 100 and 200 milligrams of artificial food dye per day.
Wow.
What that equates to is about, because one Twizzler is about 10 milligrams of artificial food dye. So 20 Twizzlers is how much an average American child eats per day in food coloring. And if we take on, I use the Twizzlers when I went to various states in order to help their congressmen pass the laws about artificial food dyes. And when if you look at the Twizzlers, you have 20 Twizzlers in your hand, and then you take two of those, and that's how much an average child has for breakfast. You take three of them, that's how much the average child drinks in a Gatorade. And it only needs about 1 to 2 Twizzlers size, if you will, to set off ADHD symptoms. And the average child eats about 20. So, does every child react to artificial food dye the same way? Absolutely not, because humanity is different. Each one of us is an individual human, and we all react differently to different things. What things trigger kids to be sensitive to food dyes? We have genetics, of course, but that's not the full answer. People will say, I have ADHD, my husband has ADHD, therefore my children have ADHD, and there's nothing we can do about it. That's false. There's not 100% chance of genetics being passed from mom and dad to a child to account for ADHD. Some, yes, 100% no. But if you have ADHD genetics in your family, it may make the children more sensitive to red food dyes as compared to a family that has no ADHD in their family. Other things, the body is a cup of inflammation. And in our body, different things add to our cup of inflammation. Antibiotic use, Tylenol, reflux medications. We talked already about genetics. What about bad bacteria in our gut? We'll get back in a second. Everyone is all talking about parasites. We'll put parasites in there to make everyone else happy, but that's a very small percentage. Chemicals, lead, cadmium, mercury, artificial scents that we put in our environment, the phthalates, the parabens we put on our skin, all that over time increases the cup of inflammation. And then a child eats a candy with red dye, their cup of inflammation overflows. And now they're like throwing themselves on the ground, having a tantrum. Versus another youngster who is eating an organic diet, is eating lots of vegetables, no processed foods, keeping their added sugar to less than 24 grams per day. They're not taking antibiotics. The home environment is clean. Stress in the household is low, and they have the same candy. And they're able to tolerate it better with less tantrums and less impulsivity than the other child. The problem in our current culture is that we look at the data with our bias. If our child does not react to artificial food dye when they eat it, we make an assumption that whatever's in the literature is BS, because if that it was true, then it would affect my child. Or the counter, if my child eats red food dye and they throw themselves on the ground, that means that everyone who eats red food dye throws themselves on the ground. That is an observation bias. That is not looking at the literature with a proper look. But we're human, so we're always going to have a bias. But again, not all children are going to react to red food dye, but a large percentage does. And in countries where artificial food dyes are banned, the rates of ADHD are significantly lower than in our country, where they're the highest in the world.
Okay. Dr. Anna, I just have to say that I love your Twizzler analogy, firstly. I think the way that you just explained it is so easy to understand. And I am floored, to be honest, because I actually didn't know that an average US child eats approximately the amount of food dye in 20 Twizzlers. Like, mind blowing right now. The way that you explain that, I think listeners are really, that's definitely going to hit home. Now, again, for listeners, do we not just love this passion that Dr. Anna Maria is just sharing with us, because you can see it shining through, and I just love having conversations with you because you get it and we are definitely on the same page. You did mention something about getting some laws passed it was in South Carolina, wasn't it? Or North Carolina, sorry. That actually sparked my interest, because I'm a little bit worried about, could there become this patchwork effect? Some states or even some companies, might go all in on the ban or on the labels, and then others do absolutely nothing. I mean, could this create this confusion for families, or even, kind of widen the gap between families who can access clean foods and those who can't?
It is a true concern. And so when I was in Florida, their proposal was to put a warning label on any foods that contain artificial food dyes, including red 40. In
Mhm.
North Carolina, they want to do a full ban. West Virginia, we know, already banned artificial food dyes from their state. And so, yes, to your point, yes, there's a lot of patching going on. Right? In California, they banned artificial food dyes from their school lunches. So it's starting to get confusing. The way I look at it, I'm like, actually, the more confusing the states make it, the more likely the companies are, this is so annoying. Let's just ban it in all states, because what we ship to North Carolina is going to be different than what we ship to Florida. I have to put a different label for Florida. I have to put a different label for North Carolina. That's going to cost the companies millions, billions of dollars. And as you and I know, who are trying to manufacture our supplements, just the trying to manufacture, vitamin D is so incredibly overwhelming. Can I imagine manufacturing billions of dollars worth of different products and trying to do for this is this and that is that. And then what if you're sitting in South Carolina, you want to cross the border to North Carolina? Is it illegal to bring food dyes in North Carolina? Now we're arresting people because they brought in colored Skittles. You know what I mean? Like, this is craziness. So, but what I'm getting from it, I was like, the more actually, I'm like, yes, have more states pass this, that, the other, because the food companies are not going to be able to keep up with that. We're 50 little countries, and that's too confusing. So it will force the companies to then, like, you know what, let's just take out the artificial food dyes, and then we don't have to worry about this state, that state, this person's school, this person's whatever a limitation that they put on there. So that's how I'm looking at it, but I'm a very optimistic and hopeful person. And I am hoping that this kind of legislative chaos, we will have a positive effect on banning these food dyes.
Yeah, you're 100% right there, and I think that all of us as individuals in our own states. Here, I'm in Washington. We've got people all around the US listening. The best thing you can do is probably lobby your state right now to get them to pass laws, because that creates that pressure on these big companies. Many parents of children with ADHD are afraid to try another thing. I mean, I totally get it. I felt that same way with my son years ago. We had tried medication, lots of medication. We also tried various supplements, lots and lots of various supplements. We tried parenting techniques, essential oils, and different therapies, but nothing seemed to make one bit of difference for my son. But then we tried the strategies laid out by the ADHD Thrive Institute, and the changes we saw in my son with ADHD were absolutely incredible. The ADHD Thrive Institute offers free calls to parents of children with ADHD to help them find the same freedom we found. When you jump on one of these calls, you get the undivided attention of one of their expert team members. They'll talk through the challenges your child is facing, as well as discuss some possible underlying stresses that could be making your child's ADHD symptoms worse. Then they'll give you a customized game plan that can help you fight your child's ADHD symptoms with food and natural solutions. You can book that free call today at adhdthriveinstitute.com/meet. That's MEET. Again, that's adhdthriveinstitute.com/meet. Now let's get back to today's episode. Now, look, what happens if this all fizzles out, okay, and nothing really changes? What should parents do if they want to protect their kids now, even if the system sort of moves slowly or not at all?
Okay, well, here's the thing. Even if the ban goes through, this is going to be my same advice. Even if it goes through or doesn't go through, all these foods with food coloring are garbage. They shouldn't be in our children's diet to begin with. I'm trying to be kind and go, yes, let's remove food dyes, because a lot of families are like truly don't know, and they're still buying processed foods, and they're going to be buying processed foods. So I'm like, all right, at least let's remove the artificial food dyes from the processed foods. But as a health conscious parent who we want our children to thrive and become successful and productive members of society with amazing brains and less medications, these foods that contain artificial food dyes, whether they have the food dyes or they remove the food dyes, are still garbage, and they have no room in our children's diet. Now, if they go to a birthday party and they have this, we're just going to move on. But in our home, I urge families that they look at the ingredients in the packaging beyond the artificial food dyes. We got to look at what are the preservatives? What are the other chemicals? What is monosodium glutamate? What is erythritol? What is sucralose? Then we get into the sugars. A lot of the companies that have, or a lot of the foods that have artificial food dyes are loaded with added sugar. Added sugar, we know, triggers ADHD behavior, tantrums, impulsivity, memory issues, anxiety. I have so many teenagers with anxiety, and they're eating they come in and I'm like, you just ate Skittles. And they're like, it's a food dye. I'm like, and there's sugar. And then like, okay, well, I ate like the little bites, the little muffins, but I made sure there was no food coloring in them. I'm like, but that's still loaded with added sugar. And added sugar is a trigger to our nervous system. It's a massive irritant. So again, we don't want to be eating any of those foods, whether they take the food coloring out or not. It would be bonus if they do, but I'm not hanging my hat on it. And I'm still talking about what are the other ingredients. One simple takeaway, what I told my Instagram followers, I'm like, if you have to DM me, is this ingredient safe for my child? The answer is no. So if you have to Google, are there any health consequences to this ingredient? The answer is no. So if you can't read it, don't eat it. If you have to DM Dr. Temple, is this ingredient okay? That's a no. We're going to put that food back.
I love that. And everyone should be following Dr. Temple on Instagram. What's your handle?
It's Drana Maria Temple.
Yeah. She's amazing, and her stories are amazing, and some of the reels that she does with her son are so funny. So definitely check her out. So we're talking about what not to eat, where we're talking about what ingredients that we should not be eating. So what should our kids be eating?
Well, so one of the things, there's so many great foods. I think a big misconception is that parents feel that if a food has food coloring, it's fun, because the marketing from the food industry has worked, and people associate colored food with fun. And I make another giant point. I'm like, food is nutrition. Going to a trampoline park is fun. Eating a nutritious breakfast is good for our body and brain. Quality time with my parents is fun. We need to relabel what's fun. Eating a waffle is not fun. There's nothing fun about eating a waffle. It's either good or bad, delicious or not delicious. Hanging out and going playing frisbee with your friend in the backyard, that's fun. That is fun. So we need to relabel that. What I say to folks, I'm like, let's keep it simple. We get too complicated. The number one complaint about relying on processed foods is that they're easy and fast. And I'm like, cool. Toast and nut butter, if you need to add some jelly, that's fast. That's as fast. Making a piece of toast or just regular bread with a peanut butter and jelly before school is as fast as pouring a bowl of cereal. Putting to cook an egg on the stove is like 5 minutes tops. Putting it on toast with maybe some avocado. That is fast. You can make a casserole of eggs, sausage, maybe some veggies on the weekend. You put it in the oven, you bake it, and then during weekdays, you heat it in the microwave for maybe 1 minute. So that took you 1 minute to make a breakfast. You can make delicious muffins on the weekend with maybe some zucchini and spinach and some protein, and then you just have it ready for school days. We make an excuse that things are not fast and easy because the marketing has seeped into our brains and we don't even realize how good they are. So the food companies have their claws in our head and we're like, oh, there's nothing else to eat except cereal. What else can I do besides cereal? When I break it down into simple things, you're like, oh, that is fast. Because they think of like making this massive meal. When you're making a lunch, people are like, oh, what am I going to put for lunch? Because that has to be done really fast because I'm making it in the morning. Okay, great. Well, leftovers are really easy. That was like one of my go-tos for two of my kids. I had thermoses and they had dinner. I would always make extra dinner and the dinner will go into thermoses. If your kids don't like sandwiches are easy, but not all kids like sandwiches, having a bento box and you have some grapes and some roll-up turkey and some strawberries and some hummus and maybe celery sticks. You don't want to do roll-up turkey, well, then you can do some organic chicken nuggets, let's say. That can go in a thermos. There's many ways of doing it. We just have to sit for a second, have a think, and think outside the box. All of us eat in the same rut. When you go to the grocery store, you buy the same things. When you order from Instacart, you order the same things. And I know this because Instacart goes, would you like to just fill your shopping cart with your previous order? And most people go, yes. So we're eating the same thing over and over again. And because we're busy and overwhelmed by life, we don't feel and think that there's any other possibilities when in fact there's hundreds of options out there. We just need to hang out with people that give us different options, because another thing is we live and do our life just like the five people that we hang out with most of the time.
Mhm.
So if most of your mama friends feed their children cereal and drink wine after school, that's what you're going to be doing. If you hang out with mamas who are like, oh my God, and I got to cut the vegetables and I got to put the fruits and I'm talking about my bento box and I have my thermos. Well, then all of a sudden you're like, well, I got to do a thermos and I got to, because we become the average of the five people we hang out with most of the time.
I love that. And you're so right. The bento boxes, the thermoses. I did my kids' thermoses this morning. Another tip, and I actually just started doing this. Just ground turkey, ground chicken, or ground beef. You can literally do that on Sunday, and it's prepped for the week. And you can put it out, and they can have that in their lunch, and it's so quick and easy. Anna Maria, you are like literally a wealth of knowledge. I want to ask you one more thing, and I ask every guest this. Firstly, just thank you so much for just really being so real. And, when you hear all these news articles about this happening and this happening, you just don't really know the truth. But the fact that you were there and, you speaking today about the lay of the land, I really, really appreciate that. But I ask every guest this. If you could just share one small actionable tip that parents can start using today, what would that be?
Instead of being a no culture, be a yes culture. So before any packaged snack, the children, when they say, I'm hungry and I need a snack, they're going to say, of course you have a snack. What fruit or vegetable would you like to eat first? And when the kids say, oh, well, I don't want to eat a fruit or vegetable. Oh, that sounds like you're not hungry. And we're done. If they're like, why do I have to eat a fruit or vegetable before a snack? Oh, because our body thrives on food that grows in the ground. And we earn the right to a packaged food after we eat something that Mother Nature has provided from the ground. And if you don't want to choose that, that's your choice, and you choose not to eat because you're not hungry. But I say yes to the snack, but my condition is a fruit or vegetable. And if parents stick strong with that, I had to stick with it and do this reminder for a whole year, if not even more, before my kids were doing it on their own. They wouldn't even ask. They would literally go and grab an apple. And while they had an apple, they're like, can I have a snack? I'm eating my apple. I'm like, that's right. And so with perseverance over time, being a yes culture is like, sure, how about we feed the body with something and then we're not, before I even changed the Cheetos and Doritos, before that, I was like, let's start with a positive outlook with a yes, 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 before we make the changes and we start with a no, no. So then overall theme is, of course you can, but.
Gold. Absolute gold. And I think listeners are going to have to press pause, rewind, and write that down on a piece of paper so they can stick it up on their fridge. So it becomes, like when you just change the normal, it becomes easy. Right now, the thought of it is hard, but once you just start doing it consistently, it becomes easy. Dr. Anna Maria, I always love having you on the podcast. Thank you so much again for joining me, being so real, being so honest and open, and sharing your knowledge and experiences with our listeners. Please tell listeners where they can find and follow you online.
Well, you can always find me at Costco and Walmart and Target, because that's where I'm shopping. And because it is hard, and change is hard. And I want to tell people just one thing at a time, just change one thing. And so I go to all these stores to show you, okay, buy this, not that, because we go through all the things that we just mentioned here today, but that's still confusing. It's like, okay, but what should I get? So I'm like, instead of these chips, buy these chips. Instead of this meat, buy this meat, and making your life easier, because I go to Costco because Costco's everywhere. Anyway, and then I post all these on my Instagram at DRANA Maria Temple. TikTok is the same, which then goes to YouTube. So that all the channels have the same information to help you raise healthy kids with less medications.
I absolutely love that. And as I said, listeners, you need to go and check out Dr. Anna Maria's social platforms. She's absolutely amazing. Thank you once again for joining us. Now, look, if you're a parent raising a child with ADHD or anxiety or any other neurodivergent disorder, you already have so much on your plate without having to decode, confusing labels or wait around for slow moving policy changes. This is what this podcast is here to do, to help it make it a little bit easier. So if this episode gave you clarity or even made you feel a little more empowered, share it with another parent who needs to hear it. Maybe it's your friend from school pickup or that mum in your support group who's really just trying to figure out why her child's behavior changes after snack time or after candy time. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep pushing for change at the grocery store, in our homes, and on our plates. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast because you don't want to miss an episode. Listeners, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at adhdthriveinstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.